Nancy Pelosi, your former opponent, has just kind of been, recoronated the Speaker of the House with basically no opposition. Some people were holding out hopes that members of the squad, more progressive type people in Congress, would maybe resist this a little bit. Although it looks like she just scheduled it so close to the end of the election that there wasn't time to effectively resist or really build an opposition campaign. I just wanted to get your reaction immediately right off the bat to what's just gone down with that and with Speaker Pelosi now again returning to the role.
The whole reason I ran for Congress was to make sure that the Democratic Party could have a transition in leadership. More than I want to serve in Congress, I just need for San Francisco not to be represented by somebody who actively promotes corporate rule, wars for profit, mass surveillance. And I ran as an expression of accountability for the Democratic Party leadership. Now, the fact that the Democratic Party in the House will be again led by Pelosi is a profound loss to progressives and to the future, because she represents, I dare say, she very much embodies the rule of the past, a failed paradigm committed to corporate profit before our communities. And if it weren't apparent in the climate crisis, it would be just as apparent in the constitutional crisis that continues to unfold in Washington. Nancy Pelosi did, frankly, everything she could over the last 2 years as Speaker of the House to enable Donald Trump's policy paradigm while claiming for the public to resist him. And, I see in her continued role as Speaker, not just the success of a ruse to, frankly, confuse the public and game the press, but a, frankly, profound danger that more of what we have all been outraged over the last several years will continue, because so many of the same figures who enabled it continue. The president is changing, and that's great. I'm very glad to see Donald Trump leave the White House. And alone, that is not going to do very much to advance any kind of change that we desperately need. And I do see Pelosi's continuation as a speaker as a failure of accountability, a failure by House Democrats, a failure by the press, and unfortunately a failure of our democracy that I hope very much will correct itself soon.
Would you have preferred to see more progressive members of Congress, Congress people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Ilhan Omar? Would you have preferred to see them resist this a little bit, be more vocal in their opposition to her being recoronated the speaker? Would you like to see them maybe go on cable news to make the case for someone else? Or do you think that this was more of a picking your battles thing where they felt maybe it wasn't worth their time and energy to mount an opposition that might not have been effective in the first place?
Good question. And I think you nailed on it sort of in the middle part of the question. A lot of people have encouraged more resistance from the squad while forgetting that they are very junior members of Congress that frankly don't have a great deal of power inside the institution. Now, there are figures who do have a great deal of seniority who are quite progressive. I'm thinking particularly of Barbara Lee, Ro Khanna and Pramila Jayapal are others who come to mind. And while I don't think anyone in the squad was politically positioned to challenge Pelosi, Barbara Lee and Ro Khanna are. And if they had support from the squad, that's a fight that they might actually win. And whether they would win it or not is an open question, but I am very disappointed to see that battle go unfought. There should have been a public battle for the gavel. And I would love to have pitted Nancy Pelosi against Barbara Lee. Like, what construction of feminism allows an architect of mass surveillance and wars for plunder and climate crisis to claim to be a progressive while representing one of the nation's most progressive cities as a relative moderate? It astounds me when there is actually a bona fide progressive here in the Bay Area who tried to stop Bush's wars, who tried to stop the surveillance state, who stood in solidarity with immigrants and the movement for Black lives. A candidate, frankly, who has done over the course of the last 20 years all the right things. And that is not the person who holds the gavel. Instead, we have a professional fundraiser who is an agent of Wall Street, representing San Francisco and Washington. And that, too, I dare say, is a failure, not just for our city, but for our country.